I'm going to see if you could tell if a card is banned in Wild. Wild is the format in Hearthstone that has every card. Every card is available. So eventually what happens is there's a critical mass of really good synergy that a card in Standard is not broken, but it's broken in Wild. So they ban it in Wild until the card rotates out, and then they unban it because then they will nerf the card. Your job today is to let me know whether or not you think the card was banned in Wild after all these years. Okay?
Okay, I don't know anything about Wild.
Wild, again, is every card in the game. And I think I've shown you enough cards that you could get some context whether or not you think a card is banned.
Oof. Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's going to be tough.
You are also... No, you'll be fine. Listen, this is Hearthstone. This is Yugioh. You'll be fine. Also, against a Magic player, I got to hear their perspective already, and I am not going to give you any indication what the Magic player said until the end after you review a card, so you have no idea what they said. This is pretty self-explanatory. We'll start with a very easy one. And I will explain keywords for you because you don't know that much of Hearthstone.
What the heck is this? Okay. Crimson Clergy, 1 mana, 1/3, overheal, draw a card.
Man, there's so much less text on these cards compared to Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Nice, I can appreciate the simplicity. Yeah. Obvious. So one thing that's interesting about Yu-Gi-Oh for people who are uninformed, and rightfully so, because they probably don't want to play our stupid game, is that Yu-Gi-Oh cards are plagued with what we call hard once per turn effects, which are, you can only use that effect once in a turn. And almost every modern Yu-Gi-Oh card has that plastered on it. Where Hearthstone, I'm somewhat familiar, is that you can just, as long as you can keep doing something, if it's a trigger effect, you can do it as many times as you want.
That seems good. That's just like immediately like start drawing cards.
I gotta remind you, first and foremost, this is Wild, okay?
Yeah.
This is Wild, okay? Remember, do you really want to spend 2 mana to draw a card?
When don't I want to spend 2 mana to draw a card?
That's in your blood.
I mean, that's like coursing through my veins. But I mean, you don't have to just use a hero power. That's like, I've got nothing else to do kind of vibe. Yeah. And you can play, I'm sure there are other minions that you can play for 1 or 2 mana that also like enter the battlefield and heal stuff. A battle cry with some kind of heals. And you're just drawing cards and you're popping off.
So theoretically, if there is some broken deck that allows you to constantly, continuously overheal, you could theoretically like draw, you know, what's the hand size in Hearthstone? 10, I think. So you could just draw like up to 10 cards potentially if you have the mana to do it. It is a priest card, so I'm not sure like if they're able to like, I mean, priest is known for healing, I'm fairly certain.
Why would you show me a card that wasn't banned to start this conversation? Banned. Ban it. Ban it. Wait, healing is cheating. Drawing cards is cheating. Banned. It's banned.
I could just see some like degenerate deck, just like, oh, like keep healing, draw like your whole deck, and then like you just win the game somehow. You know what? I'll say they banned this. Sure, why not?
It's funny how both you and the Magic creator both thought this card was bannable. So I gotta remind you going into this. This is 10 years of Hearthstone, all right?
Okay.
This is literally just drawing a card. But you're right, this card was banned, okay?
Hey!
This card was actually introduced last year in Standard, and they had to ban it in Wild because of this card right here, which I'm gonna show you.
Store 3 health to a minion and its neighbors for each one overhealed. Oh, I see. So yeah. This is.
You can see how weird that is for like a priest to have that much density of card draw in Wild, and it was able to just be absolutely broken because you can get your win condition as fast as possible. But it's weird that a 1 mana 1/3 with overfield just draw a card ended up being that good, right? But this really sets the tone for Wild for you, because now we get to the absolute batshit cards. You would think that this card probably wouldn't be banned over 10 years of Hearthstone, but it only gets worse from here.
It literally is just a food item. Although honestly, it looks like intestine cakes. I'm going to be honest. It doesn't look very appetizing.
Funnel cakes usually look like that though, right? They kind of like...
Not the good ones. There's something about it. Look to the left. Look to the left. There's just something more intestine-y than funnel cakey about this. Gadgetzan Auctioneer. Oh, I know this one.
You do know this one.
I know this one. Yeah. 6 mana for a 4/4. Whenever you cast a spell, draw a card.
Yeah, that sounds broken. Sure, they banned it.
I could see it. I could definitely see it. I'm sure that there are sequences of events where you play this, and then you play things that cheat mana and draw cards, and cheat mana and draw cards, and you become a storm turn. And in Magic, when you do a storm turn, it means basically casting spells, chaining spells, like go and go and go. And it's kind of open-ended in Magic. Like, I think the timer for a turn is something like 15 minutes before you completely rope out on Arena.
God.
Yeah, if you can imagine. And this card, I imagine in Hearthstone, it would just stack animations and could possibly break the game in that way of just too much going on a turn to actually resolve. And maybe in Wild that's possible.
I don't know, what do you want me to say? Like, it's the same concept. I know that Hearthstone has so many like zero cost cards or so many cards that reduce the cost of other cards. When I played for the very brief moment there's the big orange Thor looking Thossarin, something. He reduced the cost of everything by 1 every single turn. Emperor or something.
Emperor Thor.
Yeah. So like, I'm pretty sure, like, with that, if everything in your hand costs 0, you're just replacing every single card that you get. And that was like before Wild even existed as a format, right? So clearly, after 10 years of Hearthstone, this has to still be broken in Wild. So I'm going with that.
This one's a tougher one for me by a lot because 6 mana is a chunk. I'm going to say our auctioneer friend is not banned. People love him, wouldn't ban him. You know, they want him around. They want to hang out with this guy.
See, this is how I felt when we did the Commander video, by the way.
Yeah?
Like, it's very, like, you're like, would this really be banned? I don't know. So it's crazy looking at Crimson before this and asking yourself, would that card be banned? And I think you picked it because it was the first card. I don't know if you actually felt like that. Gadgetzan Auctioneer is not banned in Wild. It was never banned in Wild, but it did allow one of them, like, a lot of pretty obscenely broken decks, in a sense. Very toxic decks is what I will describe it as.
Interesting. Okay.
So the thing about Gadgetzan Auctioneer is, when you remember back in Classic, this card used to cost 5 mana, which was very, very good. It was one of the reasons why Rogue was really powerful.
They changed it. Okay.
No. So it was nerfed in late 2014 with the expansion GVG to 6 mana. This is what I'm showing you. Recently, this card, which was 2 expansions ago at this point, was nerfed to 7 mana. Now, you might be curious why it was nerfed to 7 mana. It was actually nerfed to 7 mana because of Druid and Standard, because they were able to do some stupid shit.
To be fair, though, I should get like a half point because they had to nerf the card twice. So if they didn't nerf it at all, it may have been banned. I'm just saying. Okay. I do think that, like you said, though, with the Crimson Clergy, being only 1 mana, that's a huge difference between a 6 mana enabler.
Yes.
So that especially in a format like Wild, that I imagine is a lot faster if you're comparing it to, like, you know, any other like Wild-esque format, like in another card game. That makes sense.
Demon Seed is 1 for a questline. Take 6 damage on your turns. The reward is Lifesteal. Deal 3 damage to the enemy hero. Yeah?
So then establish the link. You have to take 7 damage on your turns, and then Lifesteal, deal 3 damage to the enemy hero. Okay, so 6 life swing. Cool. And
then you take 8 damage on your turns, and the reward is a Blightborn Tamsin. And the Blightborn Tamsin...
Battle cry: for the rest of the game, damage you take on your turn damages your opponent instead. Interesting. Okay.
What the hell is this? I had like 4 hours of sleep last night. You might be asking too much of my brain.
If we're going back to like Gadgetzan Auctioneer, we have to talk about the fact that there's definitely some buildup to actually get to this essentially like win condition that we're trying to get here, right?
Yes.
Like you start turn 1 with the Demon Seed, cool. But then you have to find a way to deal 15 damage to yourself to essentially get all the way to the... Oh, no, I'm sorry. 21 damage if you add all 3 of them up to get to the end here. So can you deal 21 damage to yourself, drop this, and then have some way to continuously deal damage to yourself just to like kill the opponent? There could just be some like crazy combo deck that can do that in Wild. And like Warlock is perfectly capable of like doing that because that's like 90% of what the cards do.
What I'm trying to get my head around is there some way to just lose life for free? In Magic, there's a few cards that exist, like Wall of Blood is an example that just says pay 1 life, get an effect, but it's open-ended. You can do as many times as you want. And if you could do that, then this and 6 mana would be like the game. It would just take like having the wrong commons printed, you know? And then you have this in your opener and it's like a real predictable combo that just goes every turn 6, I guess.
I'm gonna say no, and I'll happily be wrong here. I don't think this was banned. So I will feel free to laugh, but I don't think this was banned.
I'm going to say I can see the power, and I'm going to enjoy hearing about it from you, about like how this all works. I'm going to say not banned.
during that expansion, this card was probably the strongest card released from that expansion.
Okay.
Yeah, there was enough ways for Warlock to not even to self-damage yourself, but more importantly, complete the quest very early on to just absolutely roll your opponent.
Sure.
So you can probably see where I'm going with this. This card was banned in Wild, like really quickly. And I think about it in Standard, right? In Standard, you're able to do this in turn 5, which in Hearthstone terms at that point was ridiculously fast. Right. In Wild, with every other card that does self-damage to you, this was exponentially faster. This was a much, much more powerful effect than they thought. And at 6 damage, it was too easy. At 8 damage, it was too easy. They had to nerf it to 10 damage for all the steps when this card finally rotated out of Standard.
Switcheroo. This is actually a Yu-Gi-Oh card, funny enough.
Okay.
Draw 2 minions, swap their health. So in Yu-Gi-Oh, Switcheroo is if you and your opponent control the same number of, it's a trap card. If you and your opponent control the same number of monsters, you switch control of all of your monsters. So it's funny how it's an interesting card. I think it's very bad though. It's very gimmicky. But Switcheroo here is draw 2 minions, swap their health. I love how Hearthstone has mechanics that you just get to draw random stuff out of your deck. Like you can't do that in physical TCGs. It's
awesome, dude. I'm really glad they lean into it.
Interesting. It's very cheap, right? So it's a low opportunity cost. It's card advantage, so it's not on the surface bad. And then there's like a potential upside of a minion having just an absurdly high power that shouldn't have it.
If you play some sort of priest deck that plays 2 minions exactly, and then you play this, you draw them both, but you're playing something that one thing that has 20 health and one thing that is the combo piece that you want to give 20 health, and then there's some way to just kill them as a result of that. That could be some sort of thing.
Was it banned? You can see the potential for it, but I'm going to say you're going to tell me the story of how it's banned, but with no context, I don't think this card should be banned.
Is that ban worthy though? I think it's fine. I don't think this is ban worthy though, so I'm going to say no.
All right, this card was banned.
Great, perfect.
Actually, you know what's crazy is you basically had every piece to why this card was banned. It allowed one of the most interesting interactions people have seen in probably Hearthstone's history because of how it interacted with this card.
Oh God. The Darkness. 4 mana for a 20/20.
Yeah.
Starts dormant. Battle Cry. Shuffle 3 candles into the enemy deck. When drawn, this awakens.
Well, this is another card that's been in Classic, or that was in Classic Hearthstone.
The boar. Yes. 1 mana, 1/1 charge. Yeah. Okay.
So you can start to see where I'm going with this. The fact is that Priest has a bunch of different ways to, I don't know, make their attack equal to their health.
What? Okay. Inner Fire. Change a minion's attack to its health. Okay. Are you telling me in Wild that it got so bad that they had to ban it because you could do a combo where you just had a 20 attack?
Yes. That's
for 2 mana.
That's literally what it is. That was very consistent turn 4 game plan win condition.
Wasn't really. Because you say consistent, I don't feel like this would be consistent enough to warrant a ban. I feel like it's one of the, Yu-Gi-Oh has a bunch of decks that are gimmicky that will pull shit like that off every now and then, but it wouldn't be considered that consistent, or it's it wouldn't be consistent enough that it would warrant attention.
I'm gonna say that Yu-Gi-Oh, there's hand traps, there's way to interact with your opponent, right?
Yeah.
How do you interact with your opponent when they just go switcheroo on 3? You just have to hope you have a taunt set up or something to basically stop this from happening. And most of the time you can't. So then it comes down to Blizzard asking themselves do we deal with this because it's so consistent and people are seeing it so often that it's ruining the format? Yeah, probably.
Dreadsteed. I actually know this card.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Now, do I know if it was banned in Wild? That's a completely different question.
4 mana, 1/1, demon, death rattle, summon a Dreadsteed.
This may have been another combo enabler of sorts because it is a Warlock card. Warlock feeds off of, either life drain or just popping its own stuff. And so if there's something that's oh, pop a guy, do this, pop a guy, do that, right? And that's super cheap, and Dreadsteed just a infinite fodder for you to do that.
Yes.
That could be crazy. And in Wild, that could be even crazier because you have access to more cards to do so. But it is 4 mana.
So My first thought is maybe this gets you banned because there's some combination that breaks the game. Because there's an opportunity to create an endless loop here. Because if you have a card that does 1 damage to a Dreadsteed when it enters or summoned or something, or just consistently repeating damage on the board, it's an endless loop. And if you can't stop it, it might break the game and the game has to be a draw. I know of this because of a very expensive endless loop in Magic with 2 dinosaurs, actually, Marauding Raptor and Polyraptor. They create an infinite loop of creating more Polyraptors, and then the game draws if you can't break it.
This is going to be another one of those things where I talk myself in circles to be like, yeah, there's some crazy combo you can do with it. And I say it wasn't banned. And so, yeah, I'm going to do that again. It wasn't banned.
Okay, this one in particular was not banned.
I feel like this is probably part of a very cool deck, but I could also see it being a problem in a wider card pool. Like, it has those kind of alarm bells. So I'm going to take a shot that because of those alarm bells, that this is banned in Wild. That there's an interaction that's available there that isn't in Standard.
This card was not banned in Wild, but they did a change to the card basically preemptively before it would have been banned in Wild. And that's why I showed it to you. Your intuition was very correct, by the way. So the reason why this card was preemptively changed, well, I wouldn't call it necessarily preemptively changed. I don't remember when they actually did it, but there's another card in Knights of the Frozen Throne. This is basically the first time they did an effect like this called Defile, which I'll let you read.
2 mana. Deal 1 damage to all minions. If they die, cast this again. So
you can you can see, as you said, that this would be a way of breaking the game in a sense, because the animations would not stop. And I'm not 100% sure if there's a cap on Defile. There probably is, but maybe they didn't have the cap when they released Dreadsteed as well as Defile.
At the end of the turn, summon a Dreadsteed.
Yes.
Yeah, so that plate gets around the Defile thing. Okay,
yes,
because
exactly.
otherwise you're just getting infinite people, and then people are just going to quit because they don't want to play anymore.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly. And now if you nerf this, it's even worse. So
yeah, it is. This card is funny because I wanted to show it to you just because of the fact that, like, you're right. Like, there's ways that you could break it, right? There's ways that this can fundamentally break Hearthstone.
It's a combo card.
It is a combo card. So you can think of it like whether or not it would be bannable. What was I going to say? I think CGB said that this card was banned, like, just because of the fact that the potential with something like this can be broken.
I could see it. Yeah, I feel like, I especially feel like, too, as a Magic player, this feels more of like a Magic combo card. This, like, by Yu-Gi-Oh standards, this card would be like whatever.
Test subject, 1 mana, 0/2, Death Rattle, return any spells you cast on this minion to your hand. Oh God.
I like how we're just like only doing Priest and Warlock cards. It's
well,
very
you'll
funny.
notice that, like, often Warlock and Priest are always doing something stupid. So yeah, a lot of these cards are Priest or Warlock.
That's funny.
In Magic, we have a popular commander named Feather who does this, and Feather is a 3 mana, like 3/4, and you can build your whole deck around Feather, and it can be toxic and oppressive. And the card is not banned, but that's a 3 mana creature, and it's very vulnerable. This comes down on turn 1. It's the Death Rattle, though. It's the Death Rattle. It's not the ongoing effect. That's the difference. You turn any spells you cast on this minion to your hand. So you have to kill it. Is there a way to kill it while also making a copy of it to create like an kind of an endless, like, get it back, do it again, do it again? There's gotta be in a bigger format.
I will actually answer that question for you. There is. In Standard, this was a playable card. And the reason this was a playable card was because also of Stone Tusk Boar, because of the thought process of you can give test subject all of this, like all this stuff to buff its health and buff its attack, etc.
Sure.
And there's another card that says summon a copy of a Death Rattle minion at 1 life. So then you can get all of those buffs again in your hand, and you can keep doing that because the card that summons a copy of it also goes back to your hand, right? And then eventually what would happen is your board would be a 40/40 and you would kill your opponent, right?
Sure.
That was a actual meta deck in Standard.
That's crazy.
Yes.
That's nuts. It's wow. You were kidding that Stone Tusk Boar is such a problem for Hearthstone.
There's always a thing looking at Priest, especially. It's like, can you make this card broken? They have rotated out of Standard because they're too scared of it. Fucking, this Boar is nuts.
I bet it's banned, but I can't picture it. I'm gonna say it's not banned.
It just depends if there's 4 years worth of other broken Priest stuff for Wild that would warrant this card to get banned. And if it's already good in Standard, you would think it'd be good in Wild, but is it good enough in Wild to get it banned? That's the question. You know, you're already probably purposely misleading me down the road that it is banned, so I'll say that it's banned and thinking that it's not.
Okay, it is banned. You metagamed it,
right.
which is fine. This card was actually banned for a completely different reason, though, which is really funny. So I gotta set this up as well. During an expansion of Castle Nathria, which was 2022. Yeah, 2022. Okay. They showed this card, and you can read this card real quickly.
Mindseer, cool art. Deal 2 damage to a minion. If it dies, deal 3 damage to an enemy hero. Oh, I see where this is going. Okay.
Okay. So we kill our subject. We deal 3 damage to the enemy hero, and we get this back.
You can kind of see where this is going, though, right? Where it's like you do the 3 damage. You kill your test subject. You do the 3 damage to the enemy hero, and then you get this card back. And I just told you how there's a way to copy the test subject, et cetera, et cetera. But most importantly, this was like the final thing in the coffin because you need to have infinite mana to kind of do it.
And your spells cost 1 less.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you literally just, yeah. That's it. It's over.
It's over. With the perfect hand, the game was over, right? So obviously, the development team didn't see that coming. A lot of players saw this coming, and before we even got to play with this card in Wild with this combo, they banned it. Like they did it like the day before, probably. They're like, we can't have this in the game. So
look how considerate Blizzard is of actually preemptively banning something for the Wild player base that makes up about 0.01% of the people who play Hearthstone. Good for them.
They're too kind. You're entirely right, though. It's funny how I don't even know what the logistics would look like to start testing for Wild, because it's probably the same thing for the Yu-Gi-Oh, right? They probably just throw it at a dartboard and be like, this is probably okay, and then smooth on.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So it's really tough to balance for the game, but like luckily they were smart enough to realize this, because if this was consistent, again, the game would be over on turn 2, like turn 2, turn 3, very, very easily. So yeah, they nerfed it.
Mechwarper, 2 mana, 2/3. Your mechs cost 1 less. Oh God, no.
Mechwarper. Oh, I remember this from like Mech Mage. Cool. That's fitting. Your mechs cost 1 less. Well, this was good back then. Clearly, it's still good now, right? But is it bannable worthy though? That's the question. Because like it could be a good card by far and away, but is it a ban-worthy card?
There's no way they had to ban this, right? Like, what could they have that would make this be banned? If it were a loop or something, surely they could just adjust that some other way or ban a different piece, right? There's no way this is banned. This is not banned. This is a perfectly fine card.
Fuck it. I liked Mechwarper. Yeah, ban him.
It wasn't banned because of how powerful it necessarily was in Wild.
But it was banned.
It was banned. Actually, this is the only card in Hearthstone history that has been banned in every single format at one time. If I remember correctly, they introduced a new format called Twist. Second Twist format was kind of reliving the glory days of older Hearthstone cards. And they banned it in Wild so that it wouldn't be playable in Twist, and it wasn't playable in Standard, and it wasn't playable in Duels because they also banned it in that. So this card is now 4 mana, and it has 4 health and 4 attack.
Dude, there are so many Magic cards like this that are like fine, and like huge board on turn 3 that can also maybe get value is just part of the game. I don't know. So you didn't play during this era, you said?
I didn't play during Wild. Yeah, I wasn't playing Wild.
Like when you first saw that this was like banned, and in all formats, were you surprised?
I think I was more surprised it was not playable in anything, because you go to your collection, like there's just a card that you literally can't play in Hearthstone, which was very interesting. I think that's what a lot of people reacted to. But I wasn't surprised this was banned in Wild, because this card has always been like kind of there. So it was like almost in a sense just like a matter of time.
I think you have to think about it too from like a game design perspective, right? Like obviously Blizzard doesn't know that Hearthstone is going to last 10 years. You mentioned it's the 10-year anniversary. And so you still have to print good cards. And I think just like through the nature of time and development, you may just not account for every single thing that was done in the early stages. And that's why, like for Yu-Gi-Oh, for instance, so many of the oldest Yu-Gi-Oh cards are banned and are never going to get unbanned because they were way too good. And I think this is just sort of like in alignment with that philosophy.
Why is that so funny? Tony, King of Piracy, is 5 mana for a 4/6. Both players' decks are swapped. Finale, draw a card. Finale. That is so chaos. That is absolute chaos.
So what's the worst thing we could do with this? The worst thing you could do is draw your whole deck, Tony like switch decks, so now your opponent doesn't have a deck, and then you just like they just lose because now they just only have what's in their hand. That seems to be within the scope of what you could do in Wild.
So you're telling me what I need to do is find a way to cheat out a card that says destroy your deck and then play this. That's what you're telling me? Does that need to be banned? Like, this is a wild effect. Played in the dark, it's absolute chaos, right? There might be some other way to break parity, but the combo of like blowing up your own deck and then swapping with somebody, it's weird because like combos like that exist in Magic and they're fine and they're too slow. And this is 5 mana.
Wild's a very fast-paced format. Are you going to be able to like do that immediately? It doesn't seem inconceivable with the way this video's been going. I'm going to say this is not banned.
Tony, you have the look of someone who got banned. That's what I see. I see a banned card. I see a banned gamer. This card is banned.
This card is arguably my favorite card they've released in the recent times. I fucking love this card. So in standard, when this card first came out, this card got me legend. I think it was like tier 1, tier 2. I can't remember. In a specific Druid deck. But this card was banned in Wild.
Okay.
The reason why this card was banned in Wild was not necessarily because, well, Tony's effect is obviously very important to this, but we're going to bring up Gadgetzan Auctioneer here real fast, and we're going to bring up another card for you. So this is a part of another quest line, and this is Demon Hunter. I haven't shown you any Demon Hunter cards. This is the only card I'm going to show you. Demon Hunter's class identity is damage, mana cheating, and draw. That's basically what they're known for.
And cool art. That too.
And cool art. Yeah, for sure. This is the final, this is the reward for the quest line for Demon Hunter. You can just read that real fast.
So battle cry for the rest of the game. Cards you draw cost 2 less. That seems broken. Okay.
So you can tell, yeah, like that's a really good effect. So the concept of this deck was to play your Kurtrus, draw through your entire deck with Gadgetzan Auctioneer because you would just run low cost spells. When your deck is empty, you would play Tony, King of Piracy. And not only is your opponent having to deal with everything that you're doing to them, they also are now having no deck, and you're also drawing from their deck. So they basically just lose the game the second the quest line is finished, and you get to play Kurtrus. So Tony was banned. They then changed the card, which I will show you. Hold on.
No, what have they done to our boy? I mean, to be honest, Tony's taking it like a champ, like same look on the face, you know, his time hasn't phased him. 7 mana, 4/6 pirate with battle cry. Replace your deck with a copy of your opponent's. Wow, that's like not even a fraction as exciting.
Yeah, it was a really sad day when they nerfed this card because they also nerfed one of my other favorite cards at the exact same time. So yeah.
Aviana, your minions cost 1. That's Druid.
That is
right?
Druid, yeah.
It's brown. Okay, thank you.
This kind of has the makings of the Timmy trap, which is like big expensive effect on a decent sized body that has to come down and then be there for a minute to do the thing, right? So there's got to be a way to cheat with it. You got to scam this.
So Druid has no issue getting this out before turn 9, especially when you count for like Innervate or just like any of the other Druid stuff that Druid can do. I know Druid cards in Hearthstone. And your minions costing 1 is crazy. We already know that like stat reduction is nuts. So then you can start dropping like just any crazy combo pieces you want, and you probably just like win the game. Druid also has all the abilities that like refresh your mana crystals, I believe. And yes. I think that also has probably just gotten worse over time, I imagine.
Yes.
I hear you like crying over there.
Fuck Druid.
Kun.
That's
the Forgotten King is a 10 mana 7/7 undead. Choose 1, gain 10 armor, or refresh your mana crystals. Okay. All these expensive cards you show me from Druid are good, but there's a difference between banned and good, right?
Yes.
So I can see in many ways this being good. I don't see that it needs to be banned.
For the record, by the way, this card in standard was, I think, unplayable.
But standard is not wild. You're allowed to get away with a lot more stuff. And as someone who plays an eternal format in Yu-Gi-Oh, like a card that is unplayable during when it was released versus like 10 years later when someone finds some insane combo for it, it doesn't matter. So You know what? I am going to say that this was banned.
This card was not banned.
Never mind.
It's so funny because you're right. Like you look at this card and you're like, at some point, this card will be an absolute problem. This card actually became somewhat of a problem in Wild when Boomsday came out and this card was released.
Starliner, 7 mana, 7/7 battle cry. If you control 3 minions with 7 health, Deals 7 damage to all enemies?
Yeah, so that doesn't actually sound so powerful in context of everything else that I've shown you, but at the time when Wild wasn't as like insane, this was like a really good combo. So they didn't ban Aviana, they nerfed her to 10 mana.
All right, Stealer of Souls, 4 mana, 2/6. After you draw a card, change its cost to health instead of mana. Oh, this card, after you draw a card, change its cost to health instead of mana. Yeah, this is banned.
Oh, no. Wait, after you draw a card. No, this had to be banned. This had to be banned or whatever, like technically nerfed, changed something. There's something about this that is not the same. This can't be fine.
Okay, this card was banned before United and Stormwind even came out in Wild. Okay, now from a Yu-Gi-Oh perspective, this card seems fucking stupid, right?
Yes.
It's, dude, like going through the thought process of how this card was released in this state is absolutely astounding because as you could probably imagine, this card was banned. Like really,
Thank you.
Really,
Thank
like
you.
This is almost speed. This almost sped run. Like right to the like I think it was like one patch after it was banned in Wild. Like I don't know what the hell they were doing. It blew my mind when they banned this card in Wild. They didn't touch it in the standard. This card was released just before the Demon Seed was released. Just before this card was released. So you can start to see.
I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah.
Oh
why the Demon Seed ended up being so strong in standard was because you could play this card and then draw with it. And the next thing you know, you're done your quest immediately. And then you'll play your 10s and the game's over.
Right.
Because like,
and this is the type of card I needed to see to evaluate the Demon Seed, I feel like.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have something like this, oh yeah, the Demon Seed's broken. Yeah. Okay.
It's a absolute disgusting card. It changed to after you draw a card, the first card you draw, it costs health instead of mana. Only the first card. So that's how they fixed it. But yeah, really, like obviously, it is insane.
What were they thinking?
It was a great question.
But I will say this, what is fun about this card is though, as you and I both being card game players and anyone watching this, who's probably everyone who's a card game player, a card like this gets you excited to play your game. Because you see this and the neurons start firing because you start to figure out like, how can we abuse this? Like, what are all the crazy things we can do with it? And I feel like from like a developer perspective, you need cards like this in the game. Even if they're broken, even if the dev team just doesn't pay attention to it, like I think you need cards like this to get people excited to play your game every now and then. Even if they're a mistake, I still think this is like a net positive.
I would agree with you. Especially in standard, but I also think that you have to like pay attention to what you're releasing soon after. Like if this card was released and Demon Seed wasn't in standard, like I think it actually would have probably stayed relatively close to 4 to 5 to 6 mana for a while. Like it wouldn't have not been as bad, but you know, the critical mass there was literally just one other card before this became broken, right? And I agree with you. I think like I've actually had this discussion with a lot of different people. When you're a card game designer, is it more important to design cards for the people who play the cards or the people who go against the cards, right? Or is it equal? But I think a lot of people would argue that the most important thing is the person playing with the cards. Like you want them to feel like they're having a blast because you want, like they bought the card. So Stealer of Souls is a good example of that.
Tome Tampering, 3 mana, shuffle 1 cost copies of cards in your hand into your deck, then discard your hand.
Interesting. But you pitch your whole hand?
Yeah, you pitch your whole hand. Yeah.
You pitch your whole hand. Warlock has the hero ability to draw another card though. So like you can at least get like a card back. I'm sure there's like other ways to like just help redraw your hand. I guess this is like interesting because if you do this early game, then it's like fine. Cause like depending on like if the game, I remember like Warlock for like the longest time used to be like very, very control. So like you did not mind going into like, you know, turn 9, turn 10 beyond. So something like this, like back in the day, would have been like really, really crazy.
And you don't redraw any cards. It's just, if you play this on turn 3, how many cards do you have in your hand? Like 5?
If you tap on 2, you're going first. You would have 4, 5, 6, 7. This would be your 7th.
7. Okay. So you're adding back into like a 23 card deck, 7 1 cost copies of cards. So you're drawing like 1 every 3 cards and you're tapping.
Like, again, like, is this like one of those things, right? Is this like the best thing? Because like I see, like, here's how I see this going, right? Turn 3, you do this. And then like are you going to have enough time to be able to, unless again, the cards you discard off of this ability are going to like win you the game immediately because you did it. That's like, I guess, the reason to consider playing this. And like maybe there's like, oh, discard this, it summons itself as like an 8/8. And you drop like 4 cards like that and you just like kill your opponent. So like maybe that's good enough. The fact that it's like a lower cost is like beneficial for that. If this was like 5 or 6, I think this card would be not as good. And after you tell me the answer, you're going to be like, oh yeah, they nerfed this and made it 5 mana like they do with every other card. I don't think this was banned.
It's very exciting. You know, like it is a bit of a Timmy card.
I think it's a really cool card.
Did it have to be banned? I can see this being a feels bad, like a high roll feels bad. I bet that the developers were looking at it, and if this card was as powerful as I think it might be, then when this came out with the coin, say on turn 2, then maybe like people were rage scooping on the spot, then developers would feel they had to do something. So maybe this card got banned. I'll say this card got banned.
Yeah, you kind of like danced your way into it, I guess. So this card in standard.
Hey, that's how I live my life. Thank you.
Listen, that's all. You just need to get the right answer on the test. That's all that really matters. Multiple choice, as long as you get the right circle drawn in, you're chilling. I'm gonna re-ask you the question if this card was banned after showing you this card.
I knew there was going to be more to this.
Malchezaar's Imp, 1 mana, 1/3 demon. Whenever you discard a card, draw a card. Oh. What? Oh, let me read this again. Shuffle 1-cost copies of your hand into your deck, then discard your hand.
Yeah, so like you can kind of see like that's kind of good.
Yeah, that's really good. So that's a wombo combo.
Yeah, that's one of the best wombo combos Wild's ever seen.
That's insane.
Yeah, this in combination with this seems really strong. Is it still making it ban worthy? Oh, that's rough. That's rough. I'm still gonna say no. I'm gonna stick to my guns.
Oh, okay. This card was banned.
Okay, I figured, but I just wanted to commit.
No, you're completely fine. It's interesting because you don't see the context of like what cards were actually really good with Tome Tampering.
Right, and I think that's the problem.
The bigger one was there's a card that said like if this card is discarded, deal 7 damage or something.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah,
and there's
really
a bunch of cards like that. So yeah, with Malchezaar's Imp plus Tome Tampering, you would do all these crazy effects, refill your hand, and then potentially get more 1-cost spells. Or you get the combo again. There's a chance that you have the second Tome Tampering in your hand,
and it only costs 1.
Yeah,
when you recycle it. Yeah,
which would be like insane, right? So they made this card 6 mana. After
I was close.
You were close. It's actually like you talk, dude, and like I hope like the camera really sees it. Like I'm like, holy shit, like does he know? Like the whole time. you're so spot on with some of this analysis. Yeah, like this card is really good. But you can see over Hearthstone's history, like Warlock and Priest doing the most nonsense shit for the majority of it. So Notorious. Those are cards that were banned. I didn't show every single one, but I actually think overall you did a really good job.
No, like I said, I think like I understand the reasoning for a lot of these cards, like why they would be banned. I think it's really just the context of like what you can do in Wild. And like, is that the thing that's like worth like getting banned in Wild versus like relative to everything else?
Right.
And like how fast the games are going to like end or like you were saying, just become non-games with like cards like this being legal or not. How big is the Wild ban list? Like how many cards are on it?
Oh, I actually don't know if there's any cards currently on the ban list because they're really good at like, you want every card to be playable in the game, right? So
sure,
they would rather have a card be really fucking bad than like not playable. And then because they're not like Yu-Gi-Oh, where they have to think about the physical version of it, they are allowed to make those changes, right? Where like we talked about like Yu-Gi-Oh, like Pot of Greed is too good, we got to ban that shit, and like we're never gonna nerf it because how do you nerf the card at that point, right?